Hello, everybody. Welcome. It was a chilly night, and it's now a warm day. I'm probably slightly overdressed. However, transformations in the weather can happen with unexpected immediacy around here. So what is on my mind today? What is with my mind? You know, yesterday I was listening to Robert Monroe, the founder of the Monroe Institute, someone who trains people in a variety of non-ordinary skills. I know some of his trainees personally. Their skills are irrefutably profound. Yeah, this brings up another event from my childhood. So today, I'm going to be speaking at length about the UFO UAP thing, and particularly the recently released film, I think, Will Ferrell, produced by Lou Elizondo. Make of him what you will, I don't care. I literally don't care. Called Age of Disclosure, which I am nearly finished watching. I listened to the long interview between Joe Rogan and Farah, and there were some great moments in that interview. But one of the most crucial ones for me, and to be clear, I'm not much of a fanboy of anything. There are exceptions. An amazing guitar or musical instrument, I'm all in about that. The Access Virus TI-2, the Osmos, the Mini Freak. There are many other electronic instruments that are astonishing. My old Gibson from the late 60s, Dreadnought, that was clearly badly damaged and repaired, but is absolutely magical. Women, in general, huge fan. Almost all of the most important people in my life have been female, with very few exceptions. My closest friends, my confidants, the people that I explore with, their openness, sensitivity, long-sufferingness, abject history of abuse, objectification, slavery, kidnapping, torture, rape. The women, here's to you, the mothers of, you know, there's a great quote. It's something like, I don't know the actual numbers, but, you know, more than half of the humans on Earth are women, and the rest of them are their children. So, yeah, here's to you, ladies. The sun, the sky, the living places, organisms in general and particular, water, light, time, food, all of these things, I'm all in on this. With notable exceptions. The humans torturing the environment and the living beings, often for the sake of food or commerce. But yeah, I'm not much of a fanboy of anything, and I occasionally enjoy Joe's podcasts. I also like to listen to Jesse Michaels. Kurt Jaimungal is a brilliant and heroic mind and human being. So many other sources of insight and intelligence out there today in the electrosphere, which is fraught with endless diseases, but the mountains in those valleys are astonishing and profound. Why do I mention this? Okay, yeah, so There's a segment of Joe's interview with Will, and I recommend it to anyone who's interested in the AOD situation. I'm going to use that to refer to Age of Disclosure. There's a segment where they're talking about forming a time-space bubble. And I think the word superposition is relevant here. I've been talking about this for more than 20 years because during my own NHI contact experience in 2002, I inquired directly into what's going on with the UFO thing. And what I was shown is impossible for me to communicate to you. It would take very careful metification, analogies, hours of dissertation. But I'll condense a few things and nutshell them. So I was shown that there's a method for achieving a superposition, and it's amechanical. It does not require machines. Organisms can do it. We just don't know. We're missing most of the information about what's going on in the universe, on Earth, as us, as organisms. And when I say most, I'm like, we're missing 90% of what's directly accessible to awareness, consciousness, and to some degree testing, but it's really important to notice that there are many features of they who are, that which is, that explicitly resist being subjected to laboratories and clinical analysis. For reasons that should be obvious, right? Do you want to be subjected to analysis? Who is analyzing you, and what will they do with the data they glean? Well, here on Earth, what they will do is weaponize it, in every case. And if they don't, someone else will. And the stuff that doesn't get immediately weaponized, that could transform the nature of human experience and existence, gets locked in a safe somewhere, right? Because it would compete, or it would actually win, against a broad array of lethal devices, imperatives, fictions, and so forth that pervade over our...
Your scarf is so cool.
Thank you. That's such a wonderful compliment. I like your sweater.
So beautiful.
Wow. There's a little synchronicity there. So that kind of flipped me around. I very rarely receive such warmth from passersby. That was so genuine, right? It kind of dropped me out of my whole intellectual thing. So they were talking about a situation in which there's a time-space bubble, and I guess the humans want to think that what's inside there is a vehicle. And it's probably not entirely wrong, but it's a misconception, because there is a superposition over the idea of vehicle in the same way that there is a superposition over the idea of thinking. There is a superposition over the idea of your humanity. There is a superposition over the idea of a mind or of consciousness. The universe is necessarily super, meta, and transpositional. And we are very confused about this because we have very clumsily and ignorantly transferred expectations from the continuity and static identity of physical objects that we produce, forks and so on, benches. We have transferred that onto, with complete lack of justification, onto all matters. And this is why you have incredibly ignorant people claiming that there's no proof of UFOs. And show me the proof. Where's the evidence? This kind of bullshit, nonsense. And probably 2/3 of those people are just bots. So they're not even people. But you can easily find, I know people personally who are quite intelligent, who just absolutely dismiss this entire branch of concern. In any case, they're talking about creating a time-space bubble, and inside that bubble you can move through any medium, water, the sky, mountains, rock, anything, because you're not in this layer, right? You're in a layer that is before or beyond or within the physical layer, where some of our suppositions about solidity and continuity are reasonable to a degree according to the concerns we bring them forth with. So they were saying things like, in this situation, this explains so many things, blurry photographs. You're not photographing an object, it's not there. Bizarre time loss situations, and I just want to remind every single human being on Earth that you experience lost time every single time you yourself dream, right? No aliens required. Lost time is a thing, right? It's not necessarily connected to aliens or, beings from other places, intelligent beings, non-human intelligences, which Earth is, ripe with all over the place. Every organism you see qualifies. Every ecology, every living place, every river, every, cloud. I mean, the whole damn thing is NHI from bottom to top. There isn't anything else. And the humans are basically the not intelligent ones because they're trapped in a bunch of dogma and ontological comfort zones that they love to defend, very fiercely. It's like a monkey chained to a pole, defending the absolute sovereignty of the chain and the pole, while holding the key to it, and having that key in the actual lock that undoes it, and refusing to turn that key, even if it kills them. This is what most of our thinking is like, and there's a variety of reasons for this. Some of them involve the reduction of ambiguity, which can be threatening, but can also be the sort of home star of the solar system of liberty in perspective and consciousness, ability, faculties. So they're talking about the situation, and they mention, a somewhat well-known report where a military person, we must assume, in the spirit of Ross Coldheart, alleges right, that they saw a craft that was 30, 45 feet in diameter. They went inside the craft, and it was the size of a football field in there, and they lost time. And both of them note that in a situation like this, what comes out of the physicalized or the semi-physicalized construct that may appear before human beings is not necessarily what was inside it. Like the inside and the outside might as well be two different universes. And then Joe, good on you, finally. Although Joe, he's a smart guy. He's not particularly insightful, and he tends to prefer the skepticism cars. But for a moment, the sort of the eclipse parted, and a shaft of light must have hit his mind when he said, "Yeah, we have these." I'm paraphrasing. Our understanding of objects is very primitive, and it doesn't occur to us that there might be objects that aren't always the same thing. Right? And I was like, yes, Joe, you got it. Yeah, good job, man. Just keep going in that direction, because there isn't anything that isn't like that. Including you, man. So I love that moment. I was reminded this morning of my first debate in, I believe, 5th grade What was James's last name? Gosh, sure I know this. Perhaps it'll come to me. So my first formal debate in 5th grade with my buddy James, and he took the side that UFOs don't exist. And already I had been studying this for, a number of years. I was still quite young, but probably 5 years, and I had read a number of books and already quite a bit of science fiction. So we did the debate, and then the class voted, and out of the 40 kids, basically, asked, after listening to this, do you believe, which side wins? Who do you believe? And I won by a landslide. I think there was 1 or 2 children, presuming that 9 or 10-year-olds are still children, that didn't agree with my position, weren't convinced. Everyone else was convinced. If you talk to children and young people, you're going to find a lot less skepticism, and it isn't merely because they're naive. They'll actually weigh the information in an unbiased way and just go like, millions of reports, photographs, videos, testimonies, stories from people all over the world, children and aerial. Yeah, there's UFOs, right? But you're just like, yeah, show me the fucking proof. Where's the bodies? I want to see a spaceship. Right? What kind of a dumb person is this? It's like, so there's some things I want to talk about this before I get too spun up and start being, my comedian self, making jokes about it. It's like people in the desert going, there's no such thing as the ocean. Fuck, I've never seen anything like that. Bring me a dolphin. I don't believe in them. I want to see the proof. So the desert isn't actually a hot, sandy place in this case. It's the desert of their inveterate ignorance and ontological limitation. Right? They don't want to hear anything that violates principles that they use to assert their sovereignty over phenomena itself. Like their thinking is apparently sovereign over phenomena. Good luck with that. Can't wait to see what's next on your developmental agenda. So, let's see, the superposition thing, yeah. So most of what I do involves achieving a superposition over my ordinary thinking, and particularly over my biases, my previously established biases, beliefs, suppositions, opinions, and so forth. Anyone who wants to see better has to be the opposite of protective of their biases. We need to be willing to entertain, 3 to 5, if not more, contrary positions at once, with relatively modest investments of confidence, and just entertain them as if they might be true. Or as if it is useful to proceed as if these are true things. Momentarily, right? You don't have to change your ontology now, but to get to a superposition, you're going to have to leave single-valued flatland in thinking, concern, consideration, consciousness, awareness, contemplation, evaluation, analysis, and so forth. And I practice this. I fail. Practice is, often about making mistakes and then adjusting, right? Attending the mistakes without judgment and seeking a better position immediately, now, right? Finding the relaxed, movable position in the structure. So AOD is a crazy thing. I would argue that in the entire history of my human experience of being exposed to media produced by humans, there's a lot of good stuff there, and books are not part of the evaluation I'm about to table here, because in books I've seen universes of the impossible and the possible and the transcendental that obliterated everything I previously thought over and over and over again. And by the way, I want to restate something I've said many times. The word learning, right, is a synonym for ontological shock. So learning and ontological shock are the same thing. So if we're going to call it ontological shock, then everybody gets pretty nervous and protective and weirded out. But if we call it learning, nobody really has a problem. So, what we call things fucking matters, right? Learning and ontological shock are the same thing. I can imagine people going like, we shouldn't make telescopes. That'll result in ontological shock. I got to get rid of all these microscopes. Ontological shock, right? Women are equally human. Ontological shock. No, we got to stay in the fucking, ridiculous nonsense of women are objects and possessions, which is, still unfortunately prevalent in some cultures on Earth. I don't think those are actually cultures. I think they're diseases, but once again, right, what we call it matters. So, in terms of visual media, I've seen things that fucked me up good. A number of things, and many of them were things about human history, particularly three things that stand out in my mind are films of Auschwitz and the concentration camps, films of war, particularly Vietnam, because that was going on when I was growing up, and every single child I knew, without exception, was like, this is wrong, this is bad, this is stupid, what the fuck are the humans doing? Why are the adults doing this? This is unjustifiably wrong. Films of scientific experiments on animals, films of slaughterhouses and so forth. These things fucked me up, and I avoid them because I'm too sensitive for this. And I can hear the arguments from the peanut gallery. I don't care what your arguments are. We choose what to expose ourselves to, and there's no obligation to expose yourself to horror, though it can be edifying. And definitely results in both learning and ontological shock. But I think of all the media that I've ever seen produced modernly, there's nothing as impactful as AOD. Now let me explain why I think that. Why this is my perspective at the moment. And I don't care at all if there are features of psyop-y bullshit involved in this, which, there probably almost certainly are. It'd be hard to imagine there's none. I don't care. At all. Because this is the most significant public level deception that I am aware of that has ever taken place, and the only things that easily pervade above this deception are things like the nature of language itself, its dangers, the dangers of representational cognition itself, most of which we are completely unaware of, the lying that what we have is a civilization, or that these are societies, These are abject lies, blatantly, irreversibly false. What we have is a vast library of prisoneering systems for life on Earth and human beings. And this should be openly, clearly stated to all human beings. These are lies. These are false. These are slavery. These are death masquerading as liberation or advancement. This is just bullshit. But in terms of ontological deceptions, this is a monumental one. And it's one of the most monumental psyops and deceptions that was ever perpetrated against human beings, in my view. And I've never seen a piece of media this revelatory and profound, because it changes it. It changes. Okay, so this relates to the structure of human cognition, lexicons, and concepts. And the structure begins with something we'll call X, which is just something like inherent mystery, or even transcendentally permanent mystery, right? Irresolvable into cognition. And then you have the universe in this structure, which is what I call the supercontainer or the uniphore. And whatever you think that thing has or doesn't have, all other things inherit or lose those features. So any attack on the supercontainer, and religion is an attack on the supercontainer, as are the underlying suppositions of monetary systems and commerce and representational cognition and so forth. So the supercontainer, which I call the uniphore, is the root of human lexical intelligence. Then you have holophores. These are a sort of a ring of self and other informing features. What is the sun? What is the sky? What is light? What is time? What is a friend? What is food? What is mother? What is dreaming? What is memory? Or who? We need a better word than what, because these are not things. And anything that is missing from one of those necessarily inhibits its appearance in the others, not to the same degree as attacks on the uniphore or the supercontainer do. And the lying about the UFO, UAP, non-human intelligence topics that has been going on for at least 7 decades in the United States represents the most significant root ontological deception. This would be like telling people that water doesn't exist, or that dolphins are just a fantasy. This is a core feature of nature, the universe, human experience for millennia, right? For tens of thousands at least of years, right? That has just been overtly lied about in such a way as to grievously harm our minds, our lives, our intelligence, our faculties, our liberties, our cognition. This is a fundamental ontological deception. And I've never seen a more severe ontological deception, except perhaps that in a related way, concerns about mind-to-mind communication, instantaneous travel, the entire branch of the paranormal, NDEs, past life experience, enlightenment, Bigfoot and cryptids. All of these things are related because there's an entire branch of reality that we have been authoritatively denied and punished for exploring. Like killed, destroyed, have your family ruined because you encountered something in your crop field that was inexplicable and clearly not human and clearly something resembling a machine or a technology. So This is a monumental deception, and AOD has penetrated this deception with fierce, momentous, and in my view, irreconcilable truth. Facts, right? Although this word is weird and dangerous too. So I think this is one of the most shocking, most penetrating, most lie-inverting pieces of media I have ever encountered in my life. And even though I have seen futures and so forth, I have to say I was unprepared for what began to happen in this field around the time that David Grush gave his testimony to the Inspector General behind closed doors and to the Senate. Along with, pilots, Fravor, and others a few years ago. The whole informational space around this branch of human knowledge has radically transformed in a very short period of time to a degree that it has failed to transform for at least 70, if not hundreds of years. And there's another kind of interesting thing which, they were talking about, well, which world leader is going to come forth and make the announcement, right? Because on the one hand, what an incredible legacy. You are the one that stepped forward and told humanity, this is real. This is part of the universe. This is an aspect of nature. This is part of what it means to be human, to be alive, to exist at all. The deception is so deep, it's like pretending the sun isn't really there. Or, according to Inga Swan, that there's nothing on the moon that involves NHI or non-human beings, because Inga has seen them, and they've seen him, allegedly. This is the most astonishing moment in media history that I have ever witnessed. And, I'm a person who's listened to hundreds of recordings of first-hand reports of people who experience contact with non-ordinary phenomena, and particularly UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want. I'm just going to call them UFOs, because I grew up with that word. Though UAP is a little more interesting because it includes the entire range of anomalous phenomena, unless we're using it to mean unidentified aerial phenomena. And what the unidentified means is that we don't know how to classify it. We don't know what category it belongs to. But allow me to suggest that things that are in a superposition do not have a category. Or if they do, the category is superpositional, right? So superpositional over character, identity, category, right? That's what a superposition is. Or at least we can use this word to point in that direction meaningfully. So we're talking about who's going to be the first world leader to step forth. And I think Rogan said something like, well, if someone could convince Trump that it's a good idea, Rogan has to be careful because he's kind of friends with the Trump clan and so forth, the MAGA folks to some degree. And then they talked about, how incredible this would be as a matter of legacy. Absolutely true, right? The first world leader to step forth and say there are non-human beings. We know there are. We have bodies. We have crafts, and so forth. And I think that the tridactyls in South America will also be proven in time. As far as I'm concerned, it's already done. To be evidence of a non-human biped, obviously intelligent species that was here, probably is still here somewhere. These mummies aren't catastrophically old. They're certainly not constructed from parts. MRIs and CT scans demonstrate that these are biological organisms, or at least This is the other thing. We suppose that we are not collapsing from superposition right now, moment to moment into human form, and we're just trapped in a subposition. But I promise you, this is precisely what's going on. Maybe the word precisely is a little bit overconfident. But yeah, something like this is going on. We are essentially trapped in a subposition, and many features of that which is and they who are not, thusly trapped. But we are not the subposition. That's a complete error. We are not the subposition. We are compelled to believe we are the subposition that is static in form, even though, of course, it changes over time, and it changes moment to moment within itself in ways that you cannot immediately see or detect. So nothing, there is no staticness, but the fiction of static identity and characteristics and so forth comes to us via our capacity to assemble artificial objects, which appear stable. Notice that they are dead inside. There's nothing, it's not a living being. It's not even an organic object. It's almost as if you're producing the skeletal remains of a variety of superpositions for specific purposes in the physical layer that is familiar to us. So yeah, it would be amazing, as a matter of legacy, for any world leader to get out in front of this. But at the same time, it would be quite dangerous, because whoever goes first, the opposing factions can weaponize that in a broad variety of ways. So it's not all win. But there's something more blatantly obvious that I'm surprised Rogan didn't pick up on. And Will didn't seem to be aware of it either. Now, of course, for Will to say this would be a little bit self-aggrandizing. And Will seemed to be not really this kind of person. So I imagine he may have been. It's my perspective that during the interview he was quite nervous and cautious to not volunteer stuff that he had not been specifically told. But yeah, they overlooked something rather dramatic, which is that at this point it doesn't matter really at all which, if some people are waiting for a world leader to come forth and tell them how the nature of reality, you are out of your fucking mind. Right? You are a very ignorant person. Because world leaders don't declare ontological primitives. This is not their job. Right? They're politicos. Yeah? So, this is a very strange expectation or desire. But nonetheless, I can imagine it happening. It would be much wiser if a group of scientists, coupled with a group of anthropologists, coupled with some religious folks, priests and swamis and gurus and so forth, came together and said, this is what's going on, folks, and it has been for a long time. In any case, there's something they overlooked, and what it is this. Will Farah, I'm afraid, has entirely preempted those fuckers, right? Because Will told them and showed them and gave, the testimony and evidence and so forth, the allegations, told them exactly what they have to say and what it's about and what the history is and everything. So Will did already give us, the lay of the land in a very clear, concise, and fraught with Lou Elizondo way. Lots of people have criticisms of Lou. That's fine with me. I probably have some myself. I don't care. Right? There seems to be this thing where people make a rhetorical error. They employ a rhetorical fallacy. And it's the fallacy that if we can impugn the speaker, then what they are speaking of is automatically impugned, or falsified, or drawn into suspicion. And this has nothing to do with rational cognitive evaluation of allegations or evidence at all. Nothing. Right? You can have a guy who's dying of lung cancer, smoked his entire life, still smokes, and he tells you, cigarettes are bad for you. And people are like, you're a fucking smoker. Good. Like, what the fuck are you thinking? So yeah, this is a rhetorical fallacy we should avoid. I don't know the name of it. It might be ad hominem, which attacks the person rather than the argument. I think that's the one. So, the situation is very complex, but it doesn't appear anything like what skeptics, naysayers, psyopers, psychops, and so forth have to inject into it. This is a true thing about nature. There are non-human intelligences. They have been interacting with humans probably since our inception here. They may have been involved in engineering our species. We could be their children in 7 different ways. We could be their ancestors in other ways.
Look at the front of it. I think those things were from the 1950s.
Yeah, this is just true. What it means and how to categorize it is another complex array of questions that will be determined primarily by our orientations and purposes in evaluating it. Right? How do you classify it? And in my recent recording, I discussed the problem that the military prison corporate industrial complex is exactly the wrong people to tell you what anything is. It's like, I'm going to try to make an analogy here. So it's like asking a professional sniper what brains are. Right? This is not a neurologist or a neuroscientist or a guru or a swami. Right? It's somebody who explodes heads for a living. So asking them, what is this, is like asking a sniper what brains are or what organs are. They're like, well, it explodes this way if you hit it that way. You have to adjust for the wind velocity downrange to hit them right. Yeah, this is insane. It's fucking wrong bridge, for sure. And fundamentally, one of the biggest problems for human beings is the existence of this idea of them, right? That supposes that there are... It's funny, I see something in the sky right now. I'm nearly certain it's an aircraft, but in the sunlight, it looked like a brightly lit cigar. Okay, where was I going here? I lost my train of thought. My thread memory is collapsing. Help, help. Oh, right. So yeah, this word them. There are no them. There are limited contingent contexts in which this concept arises and becomes perhaps useful and also deadly, but mostly it's just deadly. I understand the whole threat landscape thing and the threat sentinels and the military aspect of awareness, self-defense and so forth. But notice that animals in nature, they don't generally fight to the death. And all beings attempt to preserve their existence, and this aspect of things is real. But the idea that on Earth we are not one people is one of the deadliest ideas that ever gained purchase on this world. And we are certainly one people with the sky people. This is one people first. There's no them. We pretend there's a them, and this causes us and them huge problems. But there is no them. Fundamentally, unity has precedence over every aspect of imaginable distinction. And this is the way of being a being, and being a human, and having a mind that will protect you from every kind of deceptive lie and trap and bullshit. You see, from the unity first. So yeah, one of the gravest errors that humans ever became subject to was this idea of them. And it's the idea that is central to colonizing diseases that we call cultures. Because the them are the people that you are going to kill and take everything they had or were associated with. The living places, their ways of life, their languages, all of these are put to the torch. And then we stack up little pieces of gold or something in some box somewhere. Here you see the collapse of a manifold, right? You have living places, living beings, peoples, thousands of years of history. The colonizers show up. They collapse that all to deliverables, commodities. All those people are gone. Their ways of life are gone. Their ways of knowing are gone. Their intelligences are gone. All right? And you can think, just like the colonizing people do, about any phenomena. It'll ruin your life, mind, and intelligence, but it's certainly an option that you can, take disadvantage of. I remember as a little boy, I had a brilliant dog. His name was Popcorn. We got him at the pound. He was a scruffy little mutt. What an amazing soul. He seemed capable of understanding English, but I have reason to suspect that he was directly connected to our minds. And I also have reason to suspect that he went on incredible dangerous missions for me and my family when I was a little boy. And I also suspect that it may be that Popcorn is one of the reasons why I am uniquely intelligent and part of the explanation for why I was hyperlexic as a kid. These dogs are angels. Popcorn was a non-ordinary being appearing as a dog, in my view. And he was killed by an automobile maybe a year and a half, couple years after we got him. I'll never forget that day. That had a huge impact on me. And I remember him with incredible reverence and love. Why did he come to mind? So, having known Popcorn and other amazing dogs, one day when I was maybe 4 or 5, I saw a little dog running around in the yard, little short-haired black and brown dog. And I thought to myself, oh, here's another Popcorn. And I, ran across the street, and my mom was in the front yard, and I ran up to the dog, and it was growling. And I didn't know what growling was, because I'd never heard a dog growling. So I had no idea how to interpret that signal. And I reached down to pet the dog, and it leapt up and latched onto my left ear and just hung from my head as I tried to stand up. And of course I was screaming and terrified. That's the day that I learned that not all dogs are your friend. Some dogs can be them under some circumstances. But does that make dogs them? No. Dogs are us. The river is us, the sky is us, the world is us. It is thus. Yeah, the us, thus. So yeah, I think AOD is the most amazing violation of a long system of lying, the most impactful and the most likely to succeed violation of a long, intentional deception, not just of the American people, if there even is such a thing, but of the entire population of the world. This flips a lie on its back and exposes the underbelly, and that underbelly will change what it means to be human for every human being on earth. Historically, it will change what it meant to be human. It will change what it can mean to be human. It will change what we understand about nature, time, space, light, physics, biology, our evolution, all of the features of knowledge that we have supposed to be true and veritable will be drawn directly into question, probably on a permanent basis, by this one piece of media. So yeah, I think this is at least among, if not the single most important piece of modern media I have ever seen. And people will say things like, I don't really care what people will say, but they will say things like, well, we knew all this before, we heard all this before, blah, 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 we already knew this, like the UFO community and so forth. I've heard a lot of noises like this on Reddit. Don't care at all. We've never heard it collected in such an authoritative and pretty much irrefutable vehicle. In one place, a bunch of the names of the most important witnesses and participants, the legacy programs, the black programs, the diversion of funds, the lying, the killing, the murder, the deception, the devastation of people's lives, reputations, families, all of this. Yeah. And it's easy to understand why this thing has happened this way. And it has to do with the sequestering of power, wealth, and military advantage, particularly asymmetric military advantage, in particular organs of the corporate and governmental and military infrastructure. And this sequestering represents what I truly believe to be, truly believe, there's a weird phrase, let me rephrase that. What I confidently suppose to represent a breakaway civilization. Anyone in possession of any information, right, outside of this structured lie, might as well be a different species of humans. They have advantages, opportunities, and knowledge that no one else has, or very, very few factions have. And that creates the possibility to enslave the rest of us, or destroy the rest of us and survive that destruction, to sequester assets, resources, quote unquote, which are always dead beings, right? Resources equals dead beings. Slaughtered beings, that's the synonym for resources. It's also the synonym for money. Money is like extract of enslavement and murder. So, yeah, this just totally wrecks the lie. And there's no chance of that lie standing any longer, in my view. I'd be very surprised if it does. I was listening to Ingo Swann earlier talking about the staggering lack of high-resolution photos of the surface of the moon, given the technologies that we absolutely possess. Someone is in possession of unedited high-res photos of the surface of the moon, but not us, right? So NASA hasn't released this. Nobody's released the untouched stuff. Why the fuck would that be, right? This is part of the same lie. And there's a bunch of, This is a network, a malignant, swarming network of lying and deception and killing and murder. So I'm grateful to Farah and those who participated, and Elizondo too. And I don't need to approve of someone to listen to them. That's a fallacy I don't much engage in, the ad hominem thing. I learned a long time ago that it doesn't matter who the speaker is, you have to listen to what they're talking about and entertain it openly if you want to see better, which is usually my goal. Unless I'm being threatened, in which case I might, collapse into self-defense or something, as we are all trained to do, but even that is not usually the best option, because that's going to further compress the crisis, right? There's almost always better options, and they usually have to do with flexibility and relaxation. But yeah, where are the untouched high-res photos of the moon? Why are there none of these? Right? Now, the interview I was listening to is in '99. But obviously something has been and is going on with and around and possibly inside the moon that various factions don't want the humans to become aware of. Right? So this is another lie that may flip over in the aftermath of AOD. But yeah, I think this is monumentally compressed, concise, irrefutable, and for those very stupid people who insist, I'm not going to believe till you show me the rock. Good for you. Can't wait to see your next move. Right? I don't actually have legs. Here, let me cut them off. Yeah, there's a part of reality that absolutely exists, but I'm not going to believe it until somebody beats me over the head with a dead alien. And even then, I'm going to suppose that they probably just hypnotized me. I mean, you can refute anything. Most of nature you haven't seen. What, you believe in it? Why? Because you've been told of it. Right? You haven't seen atoms. Right? Do they not believe in atoms? Right? You haven't seen fucking quanta. Right? There's all kinds of things that humans have no way to physically evaluate that they believe without any problem at all. So, yeah, this is a dead issue to me. I don't care about the skeptics at all. I don't care really about their perspectives. Although I do find some of their arguments worth entertaining in the same way that I entertain lots of things that I know not to be true in order to see better, right? I will gladly entertain an intelligent perspectival presentation or argument if it helps me see better, or if I can find a way to use it to see better. So I do like to have discussions with people who are intelligently opposed to some declaration or truth claim or assertion. That caveat is important. So these are some of the things on my mind today. So grateful to have had this time. Still be vertical and capable of walking and breathing and seeing and having most of my senses intact, if degraded by age and suffering. I'm very grateful to all the beings who have been my teachers and my mentors and those who have cared for me throughout my life. A lot of them got short shrift, and that's on me, not them. It's the terrible beeping noise. Reminds me of most of modernity. Sorry to subject you to it. So these are some of my thoughts and reflections for today. So grateful to all of you who participate, listen, are curious, passionate, creative, playful and brilliant. Please be more of these things, loving, adventurous, heroic. We come here to transform, to learn and grow together for each other in the history and future of beings and living beings on this world. So let us attend what is truly important and ignore most of the rest of it, where we cannot easily use it to see better. Sometimes we have to look very deeply into a problem or crisis to understand its origins and produce remedies or become them. I wish you beauty, amazing dreams, deep, loving relationships, playful, creative relationships with other humans and living places and animals, plants, insects, and water beings, sky beings. May the spirit of insight dwell in your heart with love and liberation. Please take a moment, like, share, comment, ask a question, share an insight or your own experience. And if it feels natural, support my channel in whatever way feels good to you. Yeah? If you want to buy me a coffee or sign up on Patreon, there's links in my About section. I saved this to the last because I know most people don't get to the end of these recordings. But some of you do. And if you do, let me know. One person did. I appreciated that. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to learning together again very soon. Bye-bye for now.